It's 2024. The gap between the haves and the have-nots, private and public, the rich and the rest of us, continues to widen.
Dying's no problem nowadays. Living's a bleeding problem.
I'm Darren McGarvey, hip-hop artist and author. I've written about power and poverty, about growing up on a Glasgow council estate, and I've campaigned on class and inequality my whole life. This idea that people standing up against it might lead to businesses failing. No, I'm not finished, mate. The economics fail. Today, the headlines are dominated by stories about the state of our public services, health, education and justice.
We think there is like an immediate concern for their safety.
The NHS is dealing with industrial action on a scale unseen.
Shouldn't be like this. There shouldn't be patients up the side, either side.
It's an absolute shit show. In education, the attainment gap between the wealthiest and the poorest pupils has barely changed in years.
Lots of families are struggling. We're trying to do whatever we can to just help.
And a creaking justice system is failing both victim and criminal.
Kids are going out with knives and weapons to protect themselves.
In this series, with frontline access to our hospitals,
we don't actually have enough room.
You want to take that?
Okay, you don't mind, thank you.
No, not at all. Schools.
We empower our kids and we say your voice is just as important as anybody else's.
And prisons. Probably know something in here. Hell, how you doing, wee man? I'll be exploring just what can be done about the state we're in. They say justice delayed is justice denied. Thousands of cases await trial across the UK. We have one of the highest prison populations in Europe. And trust in the police is at an all-time low. So I'd like to know, is anyone getting justice from this system? To find out, I'm going to take you on a journey. We'll cross the thin blue line, enter the labyrinthine court system, and end up behind bars. So we'll begin with the part that we're all probably most familiar with, the police. And that familiarity might come from the number of headlines they seem to occupy these days. With this in mind, and coming from a community with a rocky relationship with them, I'd really like to know what possesses new recruits to join the service. It's 2 p.m. at High Wycombe Police Station. New recruit Chloe is starting her first ever shift, and she's agreed to let me join her. She's training to be a neighbourhood police officer with Police Now's National Graduate Programme, which aims to improve public confidence in the police by recruiting and training officers from a diverse range of backgrounds.
We're starting.
Yeah, let's do it. Right, from the handover, a motorbike's made off from traffic. They've got the driver. He had a knife on him.
If you are over that way, try and stay off the main roads and use the back roads for us, please.
Be aware of the feuding families on there, and make sure you don't drive on and keep your car out the front so you don't get blocked in. So just look after yourselves. Thank you, Sharon. Have a good day, one and all.
On Police Now's 2-year training programme, Chloe will work as a neighbourhood police officer. But first, she must complete the programme's academy training. Today, she's partnered with Kaylee, who's been an officer for 9 years.
So at the beginning of the shift, we turn our radio on. We'll put ourselves on the channel. So to change the channel, if you just press this little square in the middle, and just type 12 in. And then if you just slot that on there.
So given this is your first day, really,
Yeah.
what sort of things are you anxious about?
I'm really worried about making a mistake, to be fair, but I think it'll be okay. I mean, I'm really happy to have Kaylee with me. She seems to know what she's doing.
You'll be fine. Anything you're not sure of, let me know. We'll talk through jobs before we go to them, so it'll be absolutely fine.
All right. Yeah, that makes me feel better. Yeah. I'm also really excited. It's not all doom and gloom. I can't wait to get out, and I've never actually wore the full uniform out, so it's my first time, and even that is like really exciting, you know, so.
I think it's really unusual when you go out for that first time and you do see yourself, because it is different, and people do tend to look at you and you wonder why they're looking at you, and you've got to be wary that people are watching what you're doing.
suppose the good thing about it is no one knows that it's my first day.
No, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Perfect. And we normally then test the siren.
This is a bit of a flashback for me, personally. Once more into the breach.
That's how you make it
Literally,
go on.
yeah.
Wow.
With the horn.
I did not know that. I thought there was a button to make it
Yeah.
go.
Oh, did you?
I didn't know it was done through the horn.
Yeah.
Chloe and Kaylee are now available to respond to emergency calls. While we wait, Chloe explains to me why she chose to become a neighbourhood police officer. Her job will be to work with communities to build up trust in the police.
I've grew up on loads of different estates my whole life. Like, there's always police around. Some people just don't like working with them or don't want to go to the police for help. So I do understand.
Do you hope to change that?
Definitely, I think I'm not naive, you know, I'm only one person. I can't go in and expect to change a whole police force. And for me, as long as I know that I'm always acting, you know, honestly, with integrity and trying my best.
It's not long before a job comes in.
Right, I'll just find out exactly where they want us to go. Zulu Tango Golf 14. Yeah, it's copied with 05. So we've got a missing person that said they're going to harm themselves. So we're heading over there as quick as we can.
The serious nature of the job means that the blue lights and sirens go on.
People don't really move out the way.
People don't know what to do when there's blue lights. Sometimes they really panic.
How's it feeling, Chloe? Is your first big blue light moment?
You know, someone's probably going through a really hard time right now, feeling really distressed. But, you know, hearing the noises and seeing, like, how it all works, it is, like, pretty
What you've been
cool.
training for?
Yeah, it's the final pieces of the puzzle, you know.
So there's one unit that will be out the house, and all the other units will be out searching, just see if we can come across the male and just make sure that he is okay. So, did you want to have a go at calling up on the radio for the first time? It's a really easy one.
Okay.
So all you need to just say is Zulu Tango Golf 14 and then just pause and wait for them to come back to us.
Okay.
Then we'll just say we're 06 area searching. 06 basically means we're on scene at the job.
Okay. Zulu Tango Golf 14. We're 06 area searching. Yeah, I did it.
How was that?
Yeah, horrible.
Chloe and Kaylee each have an earpiece that connects to a control room and keeps them updated on the case.
This is probably going to go into what we'd call a high-risk missing person.
Yeah.
So that's when we think there is like an immediate concern for their safety. Some things we'll look at is that if he's got his phone on him, if it's got any sort of tracking capability, if he's got access to his bank accounts, it might give us an idea if he's travelled anywhere.
What's the situation now?
So we've got a couple of units that are still dealing with this missing person, and we're going to leave them to it and just see what other jobs are going on and see what else we can help out with.
Yeah.
Who's beeping? Have we got a little...
Hello, so what's going on?
Well, I've had to swerve to avoid him as he's pulled out. That's
Right.
Here.
Right,
He just
okay.
needs to back up and I can go, I'm going round there. I've got right away.
Right, I see. Okay, yeah.
You can actually just feel the stress just as contagious, you know, and then as the traffic builds, there's more and more people getting more and more stressed. And that's a situation that's just arisen out of nowhere as we're about to get in the car and drive away. And that's just one of many things, obviously, that Chloe is dealing with on our first day.
Oh, honestly. It just goes to show that how quick things can escalate, like, and get annoyed with each other.
Right.
Wow, that's some childish shit.
Yeah.
With Chloe and Kaylee now clear, they're asked to return to the station.
So, are you up for your first arrest?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Right, we'll just start heading back towards Wickham Police Station and we'll go and get the details. Apparently the guy is known to sometimes be violent to officers as well, so we'll just have to bear that in mind. There will be 4 of us there.
It's the job, isn't it? I'm going to be doing it, what, probably 1,000 times, so I need to just need to get that fear out of my head and just do it. I think I know the caution. Yeah, I got this. I know
There
the
you
caution.
go.
I practice.
Yeah, so it's you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
Perfect.
Yep.
Sends a chill up my spine.
As I'm quickly learning, there's no predicting how a day as a police officer will turn out.
Yes, copy.
Another blue light call has come in. We did film what happened next, but we're not legally allowed to show you because the case is now in the courts.
Hello, police.
But I can tell you that Chloe made her first arrest.
You are under arrest, so you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later relied in court. Did I say everything okay? Yeah. Yeah?
Yeah, it was absolutely fine.
Okay.
How did that feel?
I thought I'd be a lot more nervous than I was, but having a victim in that situation made the arrest for me a lot easier to do. I don't know if that's like a common thing, because it's just like, as soon as you see someone who's been affected, you want justice for that person. So if an arrest leads to that, I'm going to do it. Do you know what I mean? And that's how I felt in that moment. So. I can't believe I just made my first arrest. Oh my God.
There you go.
I know.
I find myself in the odd position where I'm like rooting for you today.
The rookie.
But you can see how much you care.
Oh, thank you.
Really connected with Chloe, and part of that was just because we come from similar backgrounds. That means that rapport is possible for many people that she might encounter. It's not necessarily about just trying to like woke wash the police. There is also a mechanics to how you engage with communities, which is based around your own experience and understanding and ability to identify with people.
No matter how positive the police relationship with communities, for some people an encounter with them is the start of a traumatic and emotional ordeal. I've come to meet Leanne, whose 12-year-old daughter Ava was stabbed to death in 2021. Ava had been in Liverpool city centre to see the Christmas lights with friends when she was attacked by a 14-year-old boy with a knife.
Hello, Leanne.
Come in.
Leanne and her sister June have agreed to tell me Ava's story.
I wonder if we could just begin by you just telling me a little bit about Ava.
Ava, she was 12. She was outgoing. She was funny. She has a heart of gold. She'd do anything for anyone. Adventurous. Loved the water parks, loved the fair. Loved her holidays. Loved going out with her mates. Just a laugh wire.
I wonder if you could talk me through the moment that you first found out that something had happened with Ava.
So I'd not long got home from work, and then my sister called me and said Ava had been stabbed. And I can remember taking the phone away from me in a minute and then putting it back and going, have you made some kind of mistake? Tell me stabbed. And she was like, no, you better get here now.
And has Ava passed away by the time you get there, or does this...
No.
What happens at the hospital?
I can just remember going in and going into the side room and nurses sitting beside me, but my mind just went.
It was really chaotic, wasn't it?
And then the next thing I can remember seeing the doctor walking in. And then I just can't remember the rest.
Did you get to see her at all?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, are you able to tell me what happened to Ava that day?
Ava had gone to watch the Christmas lights. She was playing, messing about as kids do. And then they were approached by a group of 4 boys. I watched this on CCTV. The 4 boys started filming Ava without Ava's consent. So Ava went to try and throw the phone out of his hand. And then Ava's mates come over and it got separated. Ava went one way, they went another. So she's walking down the side of Kirkgaga. He's standing by Primark, shouting things over to Ava, going like that to her. So with that, Ava runs over and he starts chasing each other, and next thing you know, he just goes into the back of his pants and he just plunges the knife into her neck.
The shock that you must have felt.
I still feel that I'm in that, to be fair.
Yeah.
I don't feel that goes. Sometimes it takes me breath away every day. But it feels like sometimes I'm watching someone else's life and not mine.
Were you surprised when you found out the perpetrator was as young as they were?
Yeah.
You don't expect, really, a child to be
carrying a knife.
It's such a young person for no reason at all.
What was his sentence?
13 years.
13 years. And what do you make of that?
Absolute joke. 13 years. He got 12 years for taking Ava's life and a year for carrying a knife. It's an absolute joke. No wonder these kids are going out carrying knives because there's no deterrent. Our justice system is laughable.
It's difficult to imagine how someone who's going into prison with that many obvious issues is going to be reformed by the prison environment.
He's not going to be reformed.
People would hope that they would be, but again, your point is, does he deserve to be out as soon?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. It should be a life for a life. He took my child away.
So if you had a message for a decision maker or someone with the kind of power or influence to wave a magic wand, what would it be?
I think it should be no questions asked. If you're caught with a knife, it's a straight 10 years. Simple as that.
You think it's rational that the penalty is higher for both carrying a knife and for taking a life?
Yeah, 100%. He's ripped Ava's life apart. He's ripped my life apart, my whole family's life apart. There should be a higher deterrent. He knew right from wrong. He knew not to put the knife in his pocket and he knew not to stab Ava. So, yeah, I do think that it should be higher. The penalty should be.
Ava's murderer will be 28 years old if he's released after serving his minimum sentence.
She gets to live his life. She's never going to have her life, but yet he can get out of jail and have a new life. What kind of system, what kind of justice is that for Ava? None. Ava's getting no justice in our eyes.
I feel the justice system failed Ava. Where's the deterrent? There is none.
Traditionally, I've always been of the mind that you have to understand the root causes of certain behaviours, including violence. And while I do think and believe actually quite strongly that there is always a place for that, having sat and listened to Leanne's experience of losing her daughter to a senseless act of violence for resisting male harassment, it's clear to me that any discussion of the context in which violence and crime arises, at the centre of that discussion has to be the experience of victims, 100%. Leanne's life was changed forever the minute that Ava's killer decided to carry a knife that day. But what if he hadn't picked it up in the first place? What if kids in Liverpool and across the country were helped to find another route? This is weapons down, gloves up, and it's taking violence off the streets and into the boxing ring.
Just basic stuff, 1, 2, kill. Again. Again. Now try and push your foot in when you jab it.
Okay, cool.
Now watching you.
Ready to go.
1, 2. Well done.
Cool. In communities that are so-called deprived, violence is a language that's always been communicated and interpreted, particularly among young men. So even people who don't fight, they understand that language of violence. and this dictates how they move around the community, when they might cross the street, what time they go out. But it's something that we all have to learn to manage. And obviously, some people manage it like this.
Okay.
In November 2023, a report found that half of teenagers in England and Wales have witnessed or been a victim of crime.
Move back. First.
Next one. It's a pattern that mentors like Billy are trying to break. In terms of the amount of energy a young person's having to discharge.
Yeah.
In general, you know, coming into a gym's a pretty healthy place for them to express
It's the best place in the world for young men, young women to come now. It's very good for your mental health. We've got 5, 6 coaches in there, they all do it for nothing.
Yeah.
Every one of us, we all do this for the community. So, you know, where can you go and get 10 for the pound?
Of course, of course.
So that tells you what we do, and we do it for the kids to get them off the streets. 3, 2, 1.
It's by targeting kids from disadvantaged areas that the organisation hopes to reduce street crime. Research shows that the levels of violence are highest amongst vulnerable children. 37% of teenagers who are supported by a social worker say they've been a victim. 19-year-old Josh has been working with the group for a year, and I wanted to find out how he got involved.
I've been in care since about 18 months, and I've always been in and out of care homes. I was constantly paranoid of the area. If I go out, if I go a minute, go around the corner, someone's going to stab me or someone's going to do this. I was constantly worried about what's going to happen. Kids, I might probably say younger than me possibly, are going out with knives and weapons, and they're taking weapons out to protect themselves.
Did you ask for help? Was there some kind of intervention? How did it come about?
Well, basically, I was in a hostel where basically I didn't really know what I really was wanting to do. I was constantly depressed, just feeling bad in myself, really. And weapons down, gloves up, come to my hostel, come speak to me and other few young people to see if there's anything they could do to help any of us out. So since then, I've been going to the fitness centre every Tuesday and Friday, maybe sometimes more than just 2 times a week. I've improved on my fitness, I've improved on not smoking weed no more, I've fully cut off the cannabis. I wake up, I feel so much better in myself. I just feel like a proper human being for once. I feel normal.
Yeah. For Josh, help came in time for him to avoid the gangs and the street violence that so many of his peers have been affected by. When we hear the word gang, we think of the violence, we think of the bad behaviour.
Well done, that'll do you. Good lad.
What we don't think about is the sense of attachment that people feel and the safety and security derived from being part of ultimately what becomes a family. So the key to luring people away from that is to try and create alternative attachments, alternative safety and alternative security. And a boxing gym is one of the best places to do that. But what happens when intervention comes too late and a crime is committed? Usually, both victim and perpetrator turn to the law to protect them. It's worth noting here that whilst we have 3 separate legal and justice systems in the UK, many of the problems are the same. Across the country, some cases are taking years to reach court. So with the system in such a state, is anyone receiving justice? Hello there.
Darren, welcome.
How are you?
Lovely to see you. Very well, you?
I'm very
Pleasure.
well,
Come in,
thanks.
you're very welcome.
This is Joanna Hardy-Suskind, a barrister in a Swiss London chambers. She's agreed to take me behind the pomp and theatrics we see on our TV screens and explain the real state of our court system. But first, something I've always wanted to know, what's the deal with the outfit? This is the famous wig and gown.
I would say one size fits all, but you're not trying mine on. When you first get your wig, it is sort of Tipp-Ex toothpaste white, which is considered to be obviously a bit of a beacon that you're brand new in the job, right?
Rookie alert.
Exactly, you've got your L plates on. And so when I first got this, I genuinely kicked it around my mum and dad's driveway to sort of like rough it up a bit and to try and make it look a bit more seasoned. So yeah, that's the wig. They're horsehair, they are very itchy, they're very uncomfortable, and they're broadly considered to be a bit
weird.
It's really interesting. Can I touch it? Is that okay?
Touch it.
I've never actually physically touched one of these things before, although I have seen them up quite close, and that's all I'll say. What is the purpose of the grandness of everything? Is it to induce a sense of reverence and respect for the court, or is it just because the buildings haven't been upgraded for like 100 years?
Yeah, honestly, I'm laughing at you saying that it's grand. Most of the time, I'm walking around all dressed up like a 14th century king, and I'm dodging water dripping from the ceiling, all the toilets are blocked, there's sometimes mice running around. We get out the buckets, you know, to pick up the rainwater. Sometimes we have jurors sitting there in puffer jackets and scarves and hats because they're so cold listening to the evidence.
The state of our courtrooms was one contributing factor to this. One of the strangest picket lines I've ever seen. It's fair to say nobody was in a hurry to organise a fun run to help out striking barristers. There has been a surprising level of public sympathy with many of the workers and professionals that have gone on strike, but not quite as much for barristers. Why should people care?
We found ourselves sort of hoping that estate agents or traffic wardens would go on strike so that criminal defence barristers were more popular with the public. People like to talk about the NHS. The criminal justice system is sort of our hidden public service. We felt that we were forced. We felt our hand was forced because we had emphasised for so long the problems with the system. Say you were in your second week of being a barrister, you might be briefed on a case in the magistrate's court. You would get the papers, you might get some CCTV, and you'd have to read them, watch the CCTV, prepare the case, travel to court. You might spend all day at court defending somebody, come home, write up everything that happened and send in your bill, and that bill could be as low as 150 quid. And for somebody that has trained for at least 4 years and is probably in a huge amount of debt, that system could not have carried on. And so it was with great regret that we downed wigs and we walked out.
You downed wigs. I just had to stop there just to really appreciate and absorb the full magnitude of that particular turn of phrase. We've got tens of thousands of cases stuck in the courts, loads of prisoners on remand.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if you could maybe give us some of that deeper insight into the democratic implications when basic justice isn't being served.
People see the legal system, and particularly criminal justice, as a political football. It's a great headline to say we're going to lock people up for longer. Retribution and punishment, it feels good, right? You think, good, you've done something wrong and now you're going to suffer. But it's very short-sighted. What people need to understand is that the vast majority of prisoners, almost all of them, will walk amongst us again. And what do we want them to be when they're released from custody? So are we problem solving or are we warehousing people?
By the sounds of things, there's a kind of fitting metaphor there. Many of these buildings from the outside are very grand. They induce a sense of reverence and respect for history and the institutions. Then you find blocked toilets and mice running around. And there's something in that in terms of just generally where we're at as a country. But for me, this goes to fundamental stuff about democracy, with political leaders currently touting for your vote on the basis that they are very, very strong on law and order. But what we see when we look behind the veil in the justice system is that the very basic principles of justice are not being served. If you find yourself in need of help from someone like Joanna, it can cost a pretty penny. And in 2012, accessing representation was made even harder when changes to the law meant thousands of people no longer qualified for legal aid. Some people must now pay out of their own pocket, or for some, the only option is to represent themselves in court. I've come to meet a charity which helps people facing this daunting prospect. Support Through Court's national helpline received over 17,000 calls last year, and they've agreed to let me listen in on some.
There are many people that represent themselves these days, and you know, you will be okay if that's the route that you decide to go down.
The calls that come in range from debt to housing or employment issues. But more than half involve family law, based around divorce, children, or financial issues.
It's pretty constant.
Hello, it's Lauren from Support Through Court.
98 calls so far today.
Okay, so where was it that you needed some support with?
That's interesting. Person's getting in touch. It's quite a significant amount of money involved, but really interesting at the point where it's been explained to them that they can represent themselves in the court, and you just hear this kind of sigh. Someone confronting the prospect of having to put themselves through that. So you can see just in a practical sense why this emotional and practical advice is so important.
Okay, let me pop you back hold and let me ask my supervisor in regards to this.
Emma, which is not her real name, has agreed to talk to me anonymously about her experience.
I wonder if we could just begin by hearing why you got in touch with Support Through Court.
I had a civil matter with a member of my family. I cannot begin to tell you how stressful it was.
Without going into too much detail, this was a family dispute over an estate in the wake of 2 quick bereavements.
Yeah, there's been a bereavement that has been so painful, and then I'm now finding that I'm in the middle of a legal process. And when you get a letter about this and it makes reference to consulting a solicitor, well, I felt like a criminal. How on earth are you supposed to take on litigation if you can't afford it? The whole jargon of court papers, court documents, I struggled to understand what they were. And that's very distressing and very, very frightening if you're now in this process, a legal process, and you don't have a clue what these things mean, but it's tying you into something that has consequences.
Can we claim to live in a just society? We're always being encouraged and compelled, maybe rightly so, to celebrate the fact that we live in a country that's governed by the basic principles of law and order. But when so many people are not only slipping through the net, but also being pushed over the cliff edge into a justice abyss by government, then I think that claim has to be examined.
Falling into that gap could mean losing your home, your kids, even your freedom, which leads us directly to the next stop on our journey. The UK has more people in prison than anywhere in Western Europe. Why? What could we be doing better? One of the obstacles in the way of reform is that gnarly beast, public opinion.
Why do we need a prison system?
There's some really bad people need to be kept off the street.
They make mistakes and they need to be corrected.
They need to build more prisons. I don't think they've got enough.
They need to build more prisons?
Yeah.
What about the tension between punishment and rehabilitation?
I've got a couple of mates who are in prison and they tell me it's not great.
They get everything for them, don't they? It's all done for them.
You see the conditions of the prison, you think to yourselves, been sentenced to a 5-star hotel, really?
In my day, when you done something wrong, when I was young, you didn't have TVs or blooming phones or anything like that.
If they get the right help, they can turn their lives around.
I know in my mind what I want them to say. Subconsciously, I want to present you with the be tough on criminals, bring back public hanging versus the super fluffy liberal who just wants paedophiles roaming the play parks, right? The truth is, when you speak to most people, they have a blend of different opinions that are actually quite considered in the context of their lives.
So what's it really like behind bars? To find out, I'm heading to the biggest and oldest prison in Scotland. We were promised a search with rubber gloves, and now O'Leary's there.
What did John walk today then?
275.
275 today, and staffing is 12. 12 staff. And who is yourself?
Barlinnie, like most British prisons, is packed to the rafters. It was designed to hold around 1,000 prisoners. These days, it sits at around 1,400. I've arranged to meet Vinny, who's been a guard here since 1986.
So this is what, just talk me through this route, whatever routine or this is going on just now.
All the lads today, just now as we're going through it, will be offered the opportunity to attend the exercise for an hour.
Right.
Hours period, outside exercise. So depending on how many we've got, depends on how many staff we'll allocate to the outside exercise. Large numbers can be a problem. So say 30 at the top, 30 at the middle, 30 at the second flat, 30 down here, 120 bodies out to get showers, to get the exercise. You can't guarantee safety. So we restrict that and we control it.
Yeah.
It's getting the amount of out cell time that's adequate to prisoners' needs and wants against the staffing levels.
Don't get me wrong, it's a handsome interior to the building, but you can see how the physical structure of the building and the resources available does change the way that people who are imprisoned here are treated. Guard Colin has been an officer for 12 years.
So I'll show you an old cell. You know, bearing in mind this is an old jail.
Yeah.
This is a bit old school.
OBS stands for observation. Inmates will be put in here if officers are concerned for their welfare or if they've taken drugs and need to be watched.
So you'll see, I mean, this one still needs to get cleaned, obviously, the walls. But it's pretty bleak. There's no electrics in here or anything that you can damage other than the lights and the emergency button sort of thing. So if you get a guy who's not doing too well, he gets all his clothes off and he gets the specialist safety clothing on. And from there, he could be in here for a couple of days.
Listen, calm yourself. Just down your heads.
With little infrastructure in the cells themselves, prisoners must share, which means everything in Barlinnie happens at a snail's pace. Meal times, hygiene and exercise all have to be done in small groups supervised by guards. Until recently, the same thing happened with phone calls.
We've just had new phones fitted in the cell, so they've gone in the last week.
So this frees up.
It frees them up to use the phone whenever they want.
It's quite a controversial thing for some people at home to think that people can use phones. Can you just explain why it is important?
When we were opening up, the guys that really irate because they need to speak to their families because maybe somebody else has come into jail that knows them and told them something's happened outside, for instance, and then they're constantly on the buzzer, I need the phone now, I need to speak to my lawyer, stuff like that. Start to get agitated, etc. And then you get things that will follow on from that, like damaging the cell because we can't get them out in time. I think we sometimes get a bad rep that you think that everybody's in here to give these guys a hard time. Our job's to make sure they wake up in the morning and go to sleep at night, and in between they follow the rules. And the fact that they are locked up a fair bit of the day, you tend to find that, you know, sometimes they get bored and their first thought is, what can I do to relieve the boredom?
Yeah, of course.
That's where we've got to come in and try and push them in another direction, sort of thing.
This is for exercise, yeah. Will we go in for a wee second?
Of course, aye.
You okay if some of the approaches done?
I'm all good, yeah.
No. On a sunny day, it's a lot more popular when the weather's better, put it that way. But, you know, it serves a purpose. We get the lads out, it's an area we can do exercise. It does help their mental health, believe it or not, even just come out for a chat.
Of course. Look how small it is. Do you know what I mean? It's just a concrete yard. You're not expecting it to be like an Olympic level sports facility, but you can see how the limitations of this building impact every aspect of rehabilitation. I probably know somebody. Fucking hell. How you doing, wee man? Right, good, that's good to know. Rab, see you later. Take care. Just somebody from where I grew up. It's a small world sometimes, isn't it?
Well, it's not so much now, obviously, but back in the day, you know, I was those lads that I went to school with as well, and you're opening a cell door, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, how you doing?
Aye.
But Again, that's an opportunity for you to make them feel safe.
There's an attempt to implement everything that we understand about how best to support the rehabilitation process. And so it's interesting and real evidence of a systemic problem when every partner in a transaction wants the same outcome, which is people rehabilitating and not coming back to prison, and somehow, despite that, the same negative outcomes keep occurring. Where then can we look for a better example of how to stop the revolving door? In the case of prisons, I've heard there's one place I really should see. The Norwegian prison system is renowned as one of the most humane and effective in the world. It's estimated that around 20% of inmates will reoffend. Compare this to the UK, where across the 4 nations, 39 to 49% will commit another offence after release. I've come to Indre Østfold prison to find out what it is that makes Norwegian prisons so good at rehabilitation. I'll be shown around by youth officers Sander and Jonas.
I'm Darren.
Sander.
How are you?
Yeah, good. You?
Very well, thanks.
It's 7 AM and their day begins with wake-up calls.
Why don't you wear uniforms?
We work with only the youth, and bad relation to police, to maybe officers, things like that wears the uniform. So maybe we get some good input with just coming in not uniform and meeting them another way.
Interesting that they just sort of softly open the door and look in and say good morning, rather than the sort of the usual obtrusive punching the door to wake people up. Can I have a look in the cell?
Yeah.
Just since it's empty, just to see what it looks like?
Of course. Every cell is like this. So have you a toilet, you have a shower, you have a TV, fridge.
So it's still pretty basic.
Still pretty basic,
Still pretty, as it should be. But they have sufficient space. I mean, I would say that this is about the same dimensions as a kind of budget hotel. Just a few of the guys getting up in the morning, getting their dishes done. It's quite mellow for a morning in a prison.
Welcome to Gordon Ramsay Jail Edition, man.
What are you making?
Omelettes.
This looks like a great breakfast. How long have you been here?
10 months now. I have a sentence of 2 years.
And how do you feel the environment here helps?
It doesn't fuck with your mental health that much, innit? But then we've got a music studio. Sometimes we go there, record something.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's calm. Can't complain.
What do you record? What music?
Hip hop.
Hip hop?
Yeah.
Good to talk to you, catch up with you later on.
Yeah,
okay?
no problem, man. Take care.
I can understand why people would feel this was too easy, but also it seems to me that that is to misunderstand what the prison system is for.
In Norway, we don't have 70 years, 80 years lifetime prison sentence like in USA or maybe other countries. Here we maybe have 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So my mission, Jonas' mission, everyone's mission, is to work in that time, because in a very short time they're going out to the society again. In order for us to work with him and get results, we need to have the trust, and first of all, we need to have their good relations.
What was the training for this job? How long do you train?
The school is for 2 years, which is 1 year of the school and 1 year you out in the prison, combined with school and theory. And you also have this 3rd year you need to finish, and then you are placed in a prison anywhere in Norway.
That would surprise people in the UK that you trained that long.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the UK it's like 12 weeks average.
Yeah.
What do you study when you're training?
Our main courses in the start of the year is about criminology, right?
Yes.
And ethics and morals, and It's a lot of how to speak with people, and you learn about the what you call use.
Yeah, like law. And like a prison officer, correction officer, is combined to do the security work and also the social work, and also have knowledge about mental disorders, drug abuse. Also for us, the young inmates, how the cognitive mind is working, how they think.
Yeah, this is where Norway is different.
Yeah.
Right, this is just not the sort of language that you hear being used really in any serious way in prisons in the UK.
Yeah.
And we wonder why there's a difference. I feel like I'm going to have to give a trigger warning to hundreds of thousands of rural Conservatives who have never had any dealings with police or the criminal justice system. What you're about to see is going to be very, very upsetting. Wow.
This story is about this principle of normality. So this is one of those things that they have to have in Norwegian prisons, so they can feel a little bit like outside.
It's because when they leave prison, this is a kind of potential stress point, isn't it? Just these kind of transactions.
Yeah, of course. This is a really good thing to make them like uncomfortable in this kind of situation.
Perhaps the biggest question that most will ask, though, is what does it cost? This prison spends around £89,000 per prisoner per year. In the UK, we average around £45,000, substantially less. But given that we have one of the highest prison populations in Europe, that soon begins to mount up. I'd also suggest that the biggest difference isn't simply in how much we spend per prisoner, but in our cultural attitudes towards prison, something Prison Inspector Alan explains to me.
I think the people in Norway are really forgiving people. So we don't believe in punish people for the rest of their lives. That's why we don't have a life sentence. The punishment in this prison is that you're not allowed to walk outside the prison. But in Norway, you're entitled to have everything you have outside, you're entitled to have when you're inmate. We treat the offenders equally, so I don't know what the inmates here have done. Everyone has broken the Norwegian law, and we have to treat them equally. That's the philosophy for every prison in Norway.
But obviously, if you murder someone, that's a life sentence for the family of the loved one. That's a life sentence for the person who's been killed. So that would be difficult for those victims to contemplate that the state is forgiving the people who have ruined their lives.
I can't see that they would feel any better if we murder the murderer. We try to rehabilitate people, and we believe that we can rehabilitate people. So if I didn't believe people could change, I couldn't work in the prison. Because then I thought everyone was coming back all the time. So I have to believe that every inmate can change.
My final stop of the day is to reconnect with Zeno, the hip-hop artist I met earlier in the kitchen.
So I think we're gonna try to bring Zeno and you to the music studio.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yo, Zeno, la oss vise folk hvem som virkelig det shit. Kommer lang vei fra til en svarte penger. Trodde aldri vi kunne til en beat.
Who did the beat for that?
Our friend called Pacify.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Where was that filmed?
Oslo.
It's of a really high quality.
Yeah.
So you actually had a record deal?
Yeah, I had a record deal when I was 16, me and my brother.
So have you started thinking about what your plan might be for when you leave here, whenever you go?
I'm gonna make music, bro. Music. I want to be one of the greatest, bro.
I've seen a lot of studios in prisons, but it's really usually just a small room with a PC and a couple of speakers. This feels like a proper studio.
Yeah, man. All right.
We good?
We're good.
So he's going to engineer for you?
He's going to engineer for me.
Right, you want to jump up first, or do you want me to jump up first?
I can jump on first, no
Cool,
problem. Yeah. My life's wild, living mitt är dirty. Hade en brody som jag trodde var min brody, men han är inte min brody längre. Har kan goda intentioner, en gas my way. Som Smokey, jag med min twin. Och vi går all in, jag svärger vi går all in. When you're ready, just let me know and I'll record you, yeah?
The old days weren't as good as you remember them, trying to recapture your youth, staring at the pendulum. Heat banging like a kettle drum, rock the same clothes again, even though I slept in them.
My life's wild, living mitt är dirty. Hade en brody som jag trodde var min brody, men han är inte min brody längre.
Walk into Tesco with a caffeinated bladder full of piss to distribute. Grab cigarettes and tissue. What do you mean? I'm clearly over 25. I've had a hard life. Self-service checkouts like, do you wish to continue? This is the first time I've recorded for ages, and I've realised that rapping in front of Norwegian people is no different to a Scottish person rapping in front of English people.
Yeah.
I might as well be fucking Japanese.
That's the thing, like music is an international language, if you understand what I'm saying.
Not Scottish rap.
Yeah, it is, man.
No. Scottish singing, yes. Scottish comedy, yes. Scottish rap, no.
Oh, shit.
Cool. In terms of the UK, across the 4 nations, these are the 2 options when it comes to criminal justice reform. The first option is things have to get so bad that people cry out for something more radical, and sometimes that does happen. Or the next option is courageous leadership rooted in evidence-based policy. It really just requires political leaders to look the country in the eye and say, what we want to do is return people back to society so that they never have to come to prison again. And that might mean changing our expectations of what a prison looks like. My time in Norway has highlighted the vast differences between our systems and attitudes. And as I head home, I can't help but wonder what it might be like if the UK really committed to the idea that most people have it in them to change. I'm meeting Khalid Masuri, prisoner turned lawyer and a man who knows a thing or two about second chances. Good morning.
Morning, how you doing, Darren?
I'm very
nice
well,
to
how
meet
are
you. Really nice to meet you.
And you? Do you want to take me a look around?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're coming to Albion Towers. Over the years, it's been known for crime, if I can put it that way. I know there's certain floors where you wouldn't go onto, and you'd get certain people going onto those floors to buy drugs and all those kinds of things. I have strong memories of being in my bedroom, which was just up there, and often being woken up by people shouted, and then looking out the window and seeing a good old punch-up outside, and thinking that was perfectly normal. That was a regular occurrence on the weekends.
Poverty and violence, both things I recognise from my own upbringing. And sadly, the environment where Khaled's story begins is nothing unique.
Paint a picture for us of the sort of things that were going on in your life just before being in prison.
So I was hopelessly addicted to gambling. All I would do was gamble, and my father had left me to run his business while he went away to Morocco. He trusted me. He had a kebab house, it was a takeaway, and I completely blew all the money. Never paid suppliers, never paid the rent, all things that needed to be paid for. And sadly, I then ended up in a situation where I felt I had no choice. And I knew people, I grew up with people who were involved in crime. I decided to get involved in a robbery of a post office, but I'm afraid I got caught and I got 7 years. And I had to find a way to survive. And what I wanted to do was an A-level in law. So I taught myself an A-level in prison.
Why law, of all the things? You know, because it makes perfect sense, but then at the same time, it's such a reach also.
Well, it just seemed like the right thing for me to do and for me to pursue. And so I had to apply through UCAS within prison to a number of universities. They made it tricky. I had to get a grade A in my A-level, and I was sat doing this exam, and I remember thinking, when I finish this exam, I'm not just putting my pen down, I'm walking out the gate. And it was an incredible feeling. And you know, the exam came and finished, and then I left and waited for the exam result. And I remember it coming through the post, my mum giving me the letter and seeing it was an A. And that was it. The university was stuck with me then because I'd got the grade. They'd made it difficult, but they were stuck with me then.
How did the conviction impact you as you began to embark on the career in law?
I had to go and meet this adjudicator at the Law Society in London and try and convince him that I was a fit and proper person to be a solicitor despite my very serious conviction. And he said, I'm going to give you a chance. Don't let me down. And it's always stayed with me. And I wanted to hug him, but it was far too formal. I wish I could meet him now. I would hug him, I'd take him out, I'd say, you saved my life, you really did. And I remember getting out of the actual room from him, and the first person I called was my dad. I found my dad. He was working in his cab at the time. He'd stopped doing the kebabs and he was working in his cab, and I phoned him. I said, Dad, I did it. I'm gonna be a lawyer. I'm gonna do it, Dad. And he just said these words. He said, well done, son. My son's going to be a lawyer. I could hear him talking to the customer behind him. And it was just the best moment ever. I'll never forget it. It just made me so happy to have him say that and be saying proudly my son's going to be a lawyer.
It's just there's no greater relief in life than settling a big debt, is there?
It is.
You know, like...
Literally.
We must remember that for every one Khaled, there are 10, 20, maybe even 50 other people who all come from communities like this, who might not have a supportive family, who might not have a basic level of literacy, who might be dealing with mental health issues or other problems that are not being diagnosed by the justice system. And so it's really, really important to understand that he is an exception to the rule. Our police cells, prisons and court systems are overwhelmingly filled with people from economically deprived backgrounds. Now, I would never attempt to explain away the harms perpetrated by offenders where there are clear victims, but it would be equally naive to deny the obvious link between social deprivation and crime, and downright dumb to pretend that people in positions of power and authority never behave criminally. Closing the gap between the haves and the have-nots in the criminal justice system isn't just about taking real action on inequality, but about daring to shine the headlights of justice ever so briefly at the upper end of the social scale. If you want a clue as to the central problem with criminal justice across the UK, simply visit the public gallery of any courtroom and contrast the accent of the person in the dock with the person dispensing the justice. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case. How can we intervene earlier in people's lives to change outcomes in the criminal justice system? To find out more and to watch my exclusive interview with the Open University, visit bbc.co.uk/Darren McGarvey and follow the links to the Open University.